With WrestleMania season on the horizon, that also means that WWE Hall of Fame season is on the horizon, and one of the first names being speculated to be in the 2019 Hall of Fame class is Bam Bam Bigelow. Of course, Bam Bam Bigelow was rumored to be in last year's class, but I'm wondering if because of how big of a superstar he truly was, if they want him to be one of the front runners of a class and not just be pushed to the side. Now, Bam Bam Bigelow, of course, worked throughout Continental Wrestling Association, which was the Memphis territory, World Class Championship Wrestling, which was the Von Erich, Texas territory, ECW, Jim Crockett, WCW, Japan, WWE, and even WCW at the end of its tenure. Bam Bam Bigelow seemed to appear everywhere within the wrestling landscape, being a former AWA Southern Heavyweight Champion, a former ECW Heavyweight and Television Champion, even winning the IWGP Tag Team titles with Vader and the WCW Tag titles with DDP and Kanyon as they defended it under the Freebird rule. Even going as far back to 1986 when he won Rookie of the Year from the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Bam Bam Bigelow was one of the best big men to ever grace the squared circle, and as I said, he appeared throughout many promotions, fighting many of the top stars in each promotion. He was not always Bam Bam Bigelow. When he was in WCCW, he was Crusher Yurkov, a Russian gimmick which was very popular at the time for villains and for big men. Then it was when he went to the WWF in 1987. They did the manager gimmick with him, along the lines of what they did with Macho Man Randy Savage. Randy Savage came out, and there was all the managers wanting him to be their guy. You had Freddie Blassie and Jimmy Hart and Bobby Heenan. They all wanted Bam Bam Bigelow, but instead Bam Bam Bigelow brought out a man that people would know as the Big Kahuna, but better known as Oliver Humperdinck. Bam Bigelow would play an integral part in the first Survivor Series as he was a part of Hulk Hogan's team. Then he would move on to the NWA, and he had great matches with Barry Windham, Lex Luger, Abdullah the Butcher, and that was when he was with WCW. He had the partnership with New Japan and held those titles with Vader. He eventually returned back to the WWF, and he would fight with the Big Boss Man, Jim Duggan, the Doinks, even Bret Hart, even losing to Bret Hart in the final of the King of the Ring. He had a memorable moment as he teamed with Luna Vachon to face Doink and Dink at WrestleMania 10, a big moment in Bigelow and Luna's career, as this WrestleMania match, although infamous, is often remembered by fans. He would join the $1 Million Corporation as one of the many big men that this stable would have. You figure that at one point or another they had Sid Vicious, Kama Mustafa, Nikolai Volkov, who was no small man, King Kong Bundy, and even Tatanka and the Ringmaster. So Bigelow was in a who's who of heels for this generation's version of the Heenan family. Now, Bam Bam Bigelow would not stop there. Although at this point his career was going on a decade long, he would continue fighting for the WWF. He actually lost in the finals of the Tag Team Championship. He and Tatanka lost to Bob Holly and the 1-2-3 Kid. It was at this time that he was mocked by Lawrence Taylor, which led to possibly Bigelow's biggest moment in the WWE, WrestleMania 11, where he fought Lawrence Taylor in the main event. Now, it has been said that this might be one of the worst main events of WrestleMania, but it showed how good of a competitor Bigelow was by helping to carry the match, and it showed how well Lawrence Taylor respected the business by training for the match. It was in the end of 95 that rumors began to circulate that the Clique pushed Bigelow out, and this is when he started making appearances for ECW. He formed the triple threat with Chris Candido and Shane Douglas, and it is during this time that he would win the heavyweight and television championships. He had great feuds with Rob Van Dam, Taz, and Sabu, and these are some of Bigelow's best matches. I highly recommend going and watching the ECW matches of Bam Bam Bigelow, especially against Taz. These two were just it seemed like hogs just going at each other with their tusks. One person couldn't get an advantage one way, and it was just lots and lots of beatdowns. And there was even some good technical wrestling from Taz and some high flying spots from Bigelow. But what is perhaps Bam Bam Bigelow's most notable moment in ECW is when he threw Spike Dudley into the crowd, and the crowd caught Spike Dudley, showing the respect that they had for the little wrestler. He left for WCW because of ECW's poor payments and how their checks seemed to bounce to the ground, starting an instant feud with Goldberg. It was in WCW that he was one of the first superstars who helped develop the hardcore division in WCW with the likes of Raven, Hardcore Hack, who was the Sandman, and Brian Knobbs. It was after the hardcore division that he formed the Jersey Triad, seemingly the triple threat again, but this time with Diamond Dallas Page and Chris Kanyon winning those tag team championships. He moved back to the hardcore division, and then eventually, once Bam Bam Bigelow's contract with WCW ran out in 2002, a year after it was purchased, he went to the Indies. Unfortunately, Bam Bam Bigelow died in 2007, around the time of the Chris Benoit death, the Mike Awesome death. It was seen as almost an ECW curse. But here we are 12 years later, and Bam Bam Bigelow is finally getting his spot in the WWE Hall of Fame. It'll be a question as to who inducts Bam Bam Bigelow, whether it is his friend Diamond Dallas Page, his friend Shane Douglas, maybe Paul Heyman, perhaps Taz, or Rob Van Dam, men that he had memorable matches with. But if the rumor is true and Bam Bam Bigelow is in this year's Hall of Fame class, there's no other big man or man deserving of the honor.